problematic power cuts, the threat of grey listing, rampant unemployment and poverty. There's no shortages of challenges in South Africa. Well, now, former SA Post Office CEO Mark Barnes has written an open letter to the President in which he proposes 10 ways to address the country's socio-economic woes. Barnes joins me now live in studio to discuss this and tell us more about how the President can bring about the much-needed change. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Barnes. We do appreciate it.
Good evening, Heidi. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for coming through. We don't often have people in studio, so it's wonderful. And at least we have lights because half of South Africa is dark. Let's just start off before we get into your 10 suggestions, why you've decided to write a letter to the President.
Thank you. I've been writing a lot of things and saying a lot of things over a number of years, particularly the last 3 years since I left the post office. And I just want us to, at some point, cross this bridge between political and economic expertise and power and try and find a merged way of doing business in this country. And so I'm knocking at the door. I just keep knocking at the door, making suggestions in the hope that at some point in time we'll be desperate enough to hold hands and stop not talking to one another, and I think that point is pretty damn close. And so, I was trying to find ways of getting this message out there, even if it isn't going to be heard by exactly who I address it to. It's going to be heard, it's going to be listened to, and in my view, right now, people are starting to take notice of the possibility of business and politics coming together to find a solution for South Africa.
Do you think the President will listen, though? Because I know you've written a letter previously about how you can save the post office, and I'm not sure if that was ever answered.
No, it wasn't. In fact, they were a bit mischievous about that and suggested that maybe I was doing this for selfish means. I'm looking to do this as a servant of the country, not for my own gain. I've got an extraordinary amount of reaction to the letter already today. I'm sitting here. For one thing. I think that our circumstances now are significantly worse and challenging than they were 3 years ago when I left the post office. I think we're at stage 6. Okay, I don't know how many more stages there are to go, but not a lot. Okay, we're at stage 6. We are, everywhere you look, things are starting to crumble. The first little dam burst open. The roads are in the state. And most importantly, I think the behavior of the people, if I'm to believe what I see on the news, indicates that we're not happy. And as we get less and less happy, we're becoming less and less civilized towards one another. The violent crime, all of these things are going up. So what happens in these kind of ecosystems is they gradually deteriorate and then collapse. And that's how it works. And so I think we're close to collapse. And if indeed we are close to collapse, let's just get close to one another. Let's just listen to each other. Let's just see if between us, regardless of where we come from or our previous dispositions, we've got something bigger to talk to each other about. I want to get together. I want expertise, political power, economic power, international capital, which is literally sitting at the gate. I know this. I'm involved in these discussions. I want to make them welcome. And at the center of all of this, we need capital and money, so that we can fund things like transformation, we can repair things like infrastructure. All of that requires capital. This letter says, let's invite them to a welcome place.
It's interesting you say that we need capital, and I know you've given 10 suggestions. We won't be able to go through all of them, but we'll get to them now. But you mentioned something about capital, and I think it's point number 3 where you say foreign direct investment. And just this week you had the Justice Minister and for Correctional Services as well, Ronald Lamola, trying to appease and almost not frighten investors and bankers, because we could possibly be grey listed, and that will be detrimental because we are being red flagged as a country that don't put your money there. There's illicit cash flows, there's corruption, it's just not working there, and that will be detrimental. It's part of your list. How vital is it for the President to listen to one of those suggestions?
There's nothing more important. Capital, particularly foreign capital, has choice. It goes where it's welcome, it goes where the risk-return equation is fair, and it goes where it can get a return and take it back, and where it's welcomed with open arms. Now, if you said to me, could the municipalities raise capital to fix a local issue? The answer is probably no. Could they partner with an expert to build a dam? Yes.
Or fix potholes.
Yeah, or fix potholes. Could we enter into revenue share agreements? Could we end up with the assets embedded on our soil? Yes, we can. But capital's got choice, okay? Apple doesn't manufacture all of its stuff in America because there are tax havens and other issues which drive what they do. I want people to go, welcome to South Africa. This is where you should bring your money, and we will be a good partner. Now, that means we've got to remove the clutter, we've got to remove the corruption, we've got to make it easy, we've got to think about things like economic zones, like, tax incentive schemes, like enduring partnerships. Government is a critical player. I'm not saying private sector can solve this, because it won't on its own. The government must enable it, but must make foreign capital welcome.
You speak about justice, and I'm going to pair that up with the fact that crime is out of control in this country, and nobody wants to be here because it's unsafe for women and children mostly, but also your businesses. Why would you want to set up shop in South Africa or expand your business in South Africa when there's constant crime? It's just out of control. Is this something you would also like the president to address?
Yeah, I think not only trying to address the crime, but address the consequence management of crime. Okay, so I watch enduring endless court cases about what I would regard as relatively lower court crime decisions. Okay, so you go to court. It seems to me that justice deferred is justice denied manifests itself in this country. We've had people that have been accused for years of things that they obviously did wrong. We've never brought them to book. Okay, so I'm saying the way to do that is to devolve decision-making, final decision-making power to the lower courts, and not let every single thing that we have end up 3 or 4 years later in the constitutional court. I think the solution to the country is mayors and cities who live in the places that they have to fix. I think we need to devolve power to where it matters, and I think the same applies to justice. Obviously, we have to have an effective police force, but they would become so much more effective if people knew once they got caught something was going to happen.
What would you say would be most important? I've run out of time, but maybe just to end off, would be most important on your list? It's 10 suggestions. They all look very important, especially municipalities, because service delivery is a massive problem, and this is where you're seeing a lot of unhappy communities coming out, protesting, really not satisfied with government's intervention. But tell us what you think is most important and how you hope this will get to the president's desk.
This isn't the panacea. This is a recipe to bake a cake which international capital will find palatable. Once we've got commercial sustainability, once we are able to build dams and change the course of Eskom and all of these kinds of things, then we can sit back and talk about how we do it. Right now, there's no money. And money is always the last thing you need, because money is keen as soon as it sees the right answer. So an enabling capital environment, a peaceful coexistence society, a cabinet and set of power structures that looks forward, not backwards. We need to change course. We need, as someone else said more profoundly, we need to love our future more than we hate our past.
Do you hope he listens to you?
I hope he listens to me. I hope everyone listens to all of us who are saying these kinds of... There are lots of me. It's not about me. There are lots of people going, come on, man, let's fix this. If you walk around in the street, if you go to a rugby match, we're friends. We're over it. Okay? Why can't we embrace this and deliver it amongst us? Because it's now damn nearly critical.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your insights.
Well, thank you.
We do appreciate it. Hopefully the president gets your letter, because it seems rather important. But thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. That was Mark Barnes, who's the former CEO of the South African Post Office. He's written a letter to the president with 10 suggestions to possibly turn this country around.